Club.
Dean!
Oh, no. Where Hogarth's like, this is Coolsville. Population, us. Thank you very much for joining us, episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. To my right, as always, it's Hogarth, Andy Donaldson.
Oh, then, why am I Hogarth?
And joining us this week, it's Morag.
Hi.
How are we doing?
Good.
So, every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We dive into some of cinema's best before coming back here to talking it out. Andy, Morag, this week,
The Iron Giant, per request of our lass. Iron Giant is a film about a young kid who's a bit of he likes his own kind of fantasy, and there's a meteoroid, turns out to be a giant in a forest, and it likes metal. Little kid finds Giant, they bring up a friendship because he saves Giant. And then there's an evil inspector guy because everyone's talking about this massive Iron Giant. This inspector that's evil goes across and is like, oh, I'm going to go and get fucking population off this. So what happens is he gets the army in. The army end up... It's all about like weapons, and the army end up like kind of attacking him. He attacks back because it's self-defense. And then it kind of comes to a standstill, but evil government guy is like, no, send a nuke at him. And then Iron Giant Superman's and dies, but he doesn't die.
That should be on the back of the DVD.
I know.
So can I share a little tidbit now that you round that last bit up immediately?
Go on.
Right, for years, I haven't seen this before. It's my first time watching it.
Really?
Yeah. And for years, I knew the ending. Or I thought I knew the ending. I'd seen the Superman bit, so I'm sitting there waiting for like the whole Superman thing to play out. And it happens, and I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I expected.
Yep.
All this time, I have been under the assumption he dies at the end.
You said you'd forgotten that very last bit happened, didn't you?
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked.
In what respect?
So I'm shocked that I think no one has ever spoiled that for me.
Okay.
There is a sort of an air of respect, and there is an air of people who really enjoy this film and don't want to ruin it for everybody else.
I get that.
Because when this film originally came out, it was a total box office flop.
Was it?
Yeah, it came out at the same time as Sixth Sense, so they blamed that.
That's weird. Brad Bird, by the way, who directed it.
Brad Bird, but
Who went on to do Incredibles and Ratatouille.
Your choice.
Why?
So why did you choose it?
Because I really wanted to see you cry. Because he goes on and on about how I will never see him cry. And I thought, what is the most emotional film I can think of? Iron Giant.
Up, Saving Private Ryan,
but
and
I love
Forrest
the
Gump.
Iron Giant. It's because I absolutely cry at the Iron Giant.
You cry at everything. You should cry a lot.
Did you cry at this, though?
No.
That's the important question.
Did you?
No.
Yeah, same.
So hang on, have you cried at this?
No.
Okay, you're just expecting him to.
Yeah, because I'm
Because
suddenly
it's so
super
emotional.
very emotional kind of guy. So,
But I think it's emotional because what this film gets right is a balance between like character work and plot work. And then, do you remember last week when we were talking about The Breakfast Club? We were
Yes.
talking about like treating children and young characters just like adults and like giving them that sort of emotional range.
like Hogarth.
Like just like Hogarth gets here,
Yeah.
he's allowed to be a fully three-dimensional, fleshed-out character. He doesn't have to just be a kid.
So, really interesting thing how this film came to be, based off a book. The book is by, I'll come back to you in a second. You might know.
Ted Hughes.
Oh, there you go. So,
Straight to the answer.
the concept of Ted Hughes.
Ted Hughes is a real man.
Yeah,
There's
but like Ted Hughes' concept behind the book was because
it was to help his kids because his wife committed suicide.
I'd
So
heard
it's to
about
deal with
this.
their pain.
Yeah.
So then Brad Bird had an idea because something had happened to his relative.
His sister.
His
His sister died at the hand of her husband due to gun violence, and he had an idea to portray the film through if a gun had a soul, would it still want to be a gun?
Which is like, knowing that Mark told me before, and then watching this film, I was like, shit, that's proper like embedded in the whole like kind of story in the Iron Giant, his whole motive and everything. And the fact it was all self-defense anyway, but in the end he comes out and he's like, no, I'm not a gun, I don't kill.
Because he goes through like, especially given it's a kid's film, the Iron Giant goes through like a really existential crisis of like, what am I? Who am I? And he's like this creature's just been birthed into the story. You never really quite get the backstory of where he came from, what he's really built for. It's suggested to you.
There's actually an extra clip in the extra footage of like the suggested of the planet that he comes from.
Go on.
Well, I looked it on YouTube because I knew it existed.
So what's
It's
the
a
clip?
deleted scene.
Yeah.
and it suggests he comes from another world,
Yeah, where
not
there's
from Russia.
loads of him.
Oh, really? Is it
Right.
Is it
Like
suggested he
another
comes from
planet.
Russia?
So I think this is why the film really stands the test of time for me.
It's set during the Cold War, isn't it? The film?
Set during the Cold War, and it's thoroughly layered in like this idea that everybody's living in a time where they're scared of like the Red Menace,
Yeah.
and they're worried that this guy obviously comes up multiple times that they think he's Sputnik.
Oh,
And,
yes, yeah.
It's
There's
just been
even reference of
launched.
the Sputnik satellite and stuff.
I found the antagonist. I'll get his name up here.
Kent Mansley.
Yeah, Kent Mansley. Oh, he's a fucking prick. I found him almost. I know he's like a bit comical about some of the stuff he does, but he reminded me an awful lot of the antagonist from Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, I
You
don't
know, like-
remember it.
Just pure egotistical. Not the one from Hunchback of Notre Dame is a lot more evil. He's a lot more like horrible, but like the same kind of attitude. Normally, when you get an antagonist, even someone like Scar in The Lion King, you look at Scar, and Scar's like evil, but he's a bit like this, and he's a bit cool about it. Whereas, what's he called? Broccoli.
Oh,
What's his name?
Kent Mansley.
I'm thinking Kent Brockman, whatever, from this morning. Well, that's what I mean. So he's just like he's only in it for himself. He decides to shoot a nuke at the giant where he knows there's a kid there.
ManZ's also, he at first presents himself as like the perfect representation of the American dream. He's got that sort of like nuclear family look about him. He comes dressed in his full suit with a nice little trilby fedora hat thing. He looks like the sort of guy who should be going home to his wife and being like, "Hey, sport, how was your day?"
Yeah.
He's the perfect like sort of breakdown of the American ideals at the time. And I think the way this film deals with its era is the most impressive thing about it.
Really?
You know, because it's got that weird sort of like, it's very much set in the 50s. And I know it sounds stupid, but to make a film in the 90s that's set in the 50s
All right.
for children is a very daring thing to do. Like, this film was apparently made on such a relatively small budget and in such a small time scale that these guys were just like left to do it.
Relatively
So they weren't-
small, 48 million.
Yeah, which is like half the budget of a regular animated film being made at the
Yeah, but
time.
at the same time, what, 1999? Oh, really? What was Toy Story like?
Animated films are expensive, man.
True, yeah, but I didn't realize they were that like expensive. Go on. Anyway.
So like these guys were apparently just left to make the film on their own with like very little studio involvement, which meant they got to kind of make a lot of those creative decisions themselves. But also maybe led to the studio being like a little bit unconfident in how the film would come out, which meant that they didn't really support it when it came to the marketing, ultimately
Yeah,
leading to
true.
the flop of the film. So 6 2/3.
Little thing about Brad Bird. You said he directed that scene where he's on coffee.
Oh yeah, when he has the coffee and he's all like, blah, 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 blah. Brad Bird did
'Cause I didn't know that-
like all that animation for that
I didn't
scene.
know that Brad Bird
love
was
that scene.
an animator as well. And for those that don't know, he voices Edna in The Incredibles.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, you're so fat.
No caps.
I don't. So, what was the thing I was going to mention? So, I think we have to mention about Vin Diesel, who voice acted the Iron Giant, and he's got that really low voice, which later on, that kind of like that the legacy of his voice in the Iron Giant paved the way for him to do Groot. No vibrations.
Look how
because of
gentle
our-
I was
our
there.
Setup.
Which
he paved the way.
it's funny how like he gets these voice acting roles for characters that can't speak.
But they're like essentially the same character.
Yep.
Have you noticed they're like both
Very similar in some
self-sacrifice?
respect. Yeah,
Yep.
just one that's caring, a bit like kind of a docile, like kind of a bit naive at times. Just
What is docile about the Iron Giant?
he's just a bit like floppy. He's there to have fun. He's there to run away. He's not.
You just call the Iron Giant floppy.
Yes. Well, point is, you kind of got these
That was quite
naive kind of
fun.
creatures that can't really talk as much. You can't really understand. And Vin Diesel, considering this is a guy from like the Fast and the Furious and stuff like that, you know, he's normally used to be typecast as this kind of gruff guy, this like like this, and then suddenly he's coming out this really kind of emotional speaking
A floppy
in a way
robot.
that in a way that you
Like a floppy tree.
well, there's my point anyway. These guys are just going to continue taking piss, so it's up to you.
On the opposite side of this, you have the rest of the cast, and what is so unique about all the delivery is that everyone is like playing it almost just like a regular drama. These aren't like heightened voice actors like you get in like The Empress New
Yeah.
Groove or something.
Yeah.
Everyone's delivering their lines in a really mellow, just natural way. You don't get that in animation very often. In a similar sense, I do the same thing with like the audio design of the film. The audio design isn't crazy out of this world. It's
Yeah,
not throwing music at you constantly. It's very, very mature in the way it's put together.
Not
They
often.
nearly had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Kent Mansley.
No.
And I think that would have ruined the whole film. Like nothing against his voice, but it would have made it really harsh and
Yeah.
like over the top
Because you can't get rid of like Arnold Schwarzenegger's like
True.
his voice.
In the end, we had
Hogarth.
Christopher McDonald
Come with me.
doing it.
Who?
Christopher McDonald.
Has he done anything else?
Christopher McDonald, or is this Hogarth?
No, that was Kent Mansley.
Yeah, so he is. He was in. Is he in Home Alone? Am I thinking someone else?
The dad?
Could be. I can't remember. Let us know in the comments below if you remember where he's from, because he's in loads. And when I was listening to him, I was going, "Where the hell are you from?" And to be fair, I looked it up, but my memory is so bad that I've already forgotten.
Are you looking at him? Oh.
No, I wasn't. I was trying to find more about that.
So, on the subject of all that stuff, by the way, on the final little audio note before we move on, one of the things that was suggested to this film by the studio heads after they saw it, they were so lacking in confidence in this film that one of the suggestions somebody gave them, add a hip-hop soundtrack. Because they had, for some reason, deemed it in like an unmarketable, unmerchandisable film.
So why hip hop? Because it was big at time.
Yep. So they were like, give it a hip-hop soundtrack, add a sidekick in there, put a dog character in the film.
Give the Iron Giant a disco mode.
Push the button, he starts dancing.
Oh god, that would have been horrible. Imagine if they'd done that.
We absolutely ruined it. Because this, obviously, we said earlier, the film came out and it flopped. But over time, it's really grown an audience, and people utterly, utterly love this film. And it's easy to see why when you watch it.
Warner Bros. Feature animation. It was.
Yeah.
They produced it.
Do you know another little funny little story I read?
Go on.
So they were going to put the regular Warner Brothers animated logo at the beginning of the film, which is Bugs Bunny walking out in his tuxedo.
Oh yeah.
And Brad Bird was like, "You can't do that."
Is that to get away from bring it more serious?
Yeah, he was like, it's not this sort of film. You shouldn't do that at all. So he helped come up with the logo that comes up at the beginning. You know, it's like
That's
the Warner
cool.
Bros. Thing in the Looney Tunes circles.
Because Bugs Bunny does feature in the film. He's in Hogarth's toy box.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So that like seems like a good compromise.
That's pretty cool.
I was trying to think what they did after, like, because obviously, like, I know it wasn't the biggest success, but then they came on to do other stuff after. You're talking like these guys did Space Jam, they did Iron Giant, they did Osmosis Jones, but then they kind of like did Looney Tunes Back in Action 2003. Then they like stay away for quite a while. And I've probably done other stuff as well, TV shows. Came back to do the Lego Movie. So like fair play to Warner Bros. Animation.
That's a big jump, though.
I know, but like that's a lot of time in between there. So I was just thinking because like after the Iron Giant, what did they actually do after? You didn't see much Warner Bros. Animation.
No.
So it's quite interesting to see like them come back in that kind of way. And Lego Movie's class.
They've probably lost confidence after this, to be honest, as a studio.
Why?
Because again, it's just purely financial.
Yeah, I hope they lost it at the time. But obviously, they come back and realise that they're actually really good.
It was pretty recently, wasn't it, that Brad Bird had said on Twitter or an interview or something that because of how poorly this did financially, there basically won't be an Iron Giant 2. Not that he ever really wants one. He sees it as a contained, like, one and done film.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. But he said that, like, obviously people over the years have been asking him, is there going to be a sequel? Can you get a sequel off the ground? And basically because it flopped, no is the answer to that.
There you go. There's a good example of a film that, despite flopping, is exceptionally good.
Would you like to see a sequel to it?
No.
No.
I like it as it is.
Great in itself.
And actually, do you know what? I had one little problem with it, which was I didn't like the fact that he reforms at the end at first.
All right.
But then when you find out the context for it, that it's about somebody dealing with loss and it is kind of meant to instill a sense of hope in people who are dealing with morality, then I'm kind of back on board.
I never picked up on that.
And I guess if you want to pull up like the Superman allegory, you know, he is representative of Superman, which again,
Great use of
the fact that we've got this whole like Soviet versus nuclear family America thing going on. The fact that they use the comic books as an allegory, because like comic books being the American art form, one of the only purely American art forms. The fact that they use that, build it into the Iron Giant's character, and then
throw it to the end.
Maybe make a parallel between the death of Superman, because like Superman died and came back, and then they got whole Jesus allegories. Doesn't matter.
And what does he say when he flies off and he's like this?
He says Superman.
Yeah, then that sends you off, doesn't it?
I'm crying well before that.
One thing, got to get a clip down here. Shout out to that little scene where he causes like a little flood and the raccoon's like swimming up the street.
The guy that you love the guy in the chair, don't you? What's his name?
I love the animation that sequence. It's so funny. But anyway, there is the Iron Giant. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of the Iron Giant. But Andy and I are going to be back once again next week. You're also invited if you want to come, where we are going to take a look at the beach.
And we've done well with Danny Boyle reviews so far, in the sense of every film's been fantastic.
Yep.
So can't wait to watch this again.
Until then, get watching.
Superman.
Superman.